Saving America is taking on the national debt in a special mini series. Welcome, this is Dr. David D. Schein for Saving America. The American dollar occupies a privileged position in the global economy. We are considered the core currency, the currency of exchange, the pricing of natural gas and oil. And it's so critical that we maintain the credibility of the American financial system for that American dollar. On the other hand, some argue it's just numbers, and who really cares if the American dollar is the measurement of currency, even for something as important as natural gas and oil.
Now, I just want to go back, though, David, you brought up our vaulted position in the United States, which people do not understand. The reason we get to live so large from an international perspective is because the dollar is the world's reserve currency. We have a very special position in the world that gives us a significant advantage over every other country. Now, we have been undermining trust in the US dollar. So eventually the dollar is going to collapse. The average life of a currency is 20 years. The life of this currency right now is about 50 years, since 71, since Nixon took us off the gold standard. About 50 years. So the currency, all currencies, currencies have a 100% failure rate, 100%. So this currency will in fact collapse. Now, we're accelerating that collapse because people don't understand what's happening with our monetary system, and it's the system. We have to change the system. Now, just one more point to that. The folks who want to continue to spend more money point to modern monetary theory. You love this little label they put, which is, we can print, we can make $1 trillion coin, we can do anything we want. It's just numbers, right? Just numbers. Remember, underlying numbers are trust in each other, and ultimately controls people's time. If we undermine that system of trust, we are trying to control more people, then eventually everybody will push back eventually. If the system collapses, it could be a disaster. But modern monetary theory is based on, we've been watching Japan in the 80s. And Naresh, you probably were the one that was not here in the 80s, but Japan was taking over the world. They were buying up New York real estate, buying up American companies, going to be the biggest economy in the world. And in '89, they collapsed. They have been in a declining and flat since, but they've continued to add to their debt. So for the last 30 years, they've continued to add to their debt and they haven't collapsed. So our genius is, well, they haven't collapsed yet. We can do that too. So let's just kick the can down the road, another election cycle, kick it down the road, another election cycle. As long as it doesn't collapse on my watch, all's good. I get my piece of the pie, the heck with everybody else. Until the people wake up and say, look, back to Ed's point about values, until we get our values back and actually make some intelligent decisions, we're on this hamster wheel of decline.
Steve, some additional thoughts?
I'm with you guys. That's first. I want to be clear. Ed mentioned that I had brought up climate change. I wasn't bringing that up as an existential threat. I was saying exactly what he was saying, that they're going to use it as a reason to keep spending and just blow up the deficit. They're going to use that as our next COVID, and it's going to be bad. I'm not very optimistic. They keep raising the debt ceiling. I don't even really understand the whole point of it. They said that it's never not been raised. They've raised it, I think, 78 times is what I've seen. And they say, oh, you can't not raise the debt ceiling because that would cause economic collapse. But just adding to it, I don't see the point of it. They say that it's to bring attention to it. It doesn't really do anything. We need to actually do something about it and balance the budget. That's the only, balancing the budget is the only way to do this. And nobody will do it.
Hey, Steve, before I let before we move on, you are big in baseball. One
Yes.
of the things that concerns me is that it's a reflection of the cheapness of our currency that I keep hearing these stories. One of the Astros, for instance, in the last week, got a 1-year contract extension. They're going to give him $16 million. And another guy is getting 40 million a season. And I'm trying to figure out, and it seems to me that this is almost a social phenomenon that money doesn't have any real value. And Joe Namath got a $400,000 signing bonus out of Alabama in his day, and that was a record number back then. But then we hear these numbers today, and it's like, doesn't it almost seem to feed the social perception that the money, it doesn't mean anything?
I could see that. I mean, that was Justin Verlander, who just got that big contract. I mean, there are a lot of things that go into that. Technology has changed all of these things, and what happened with, for example, I'm in Southern California, and the Dodgers, they spend huge amounts of money. It's because they got a giant TV contract, and it's those giant TV contracts that are going into these contracts that seem ridiculous compared to just a couple generations ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Dodgers have this TV contract that they caused a bunch of problems here because the cable company that they made the contract with was giving them way too much money, and then all of the other providers here wouldn't get the Dodger channel. So half of Southern California couldn't watch the Dodger games because they were only on the one channel that was really expensive. So it's interesting, but I think those giant contracts do make people, like, you used to see a giant number like that and it would blow you away, and now it's like Scott was saying, it's just numbers now. You're like, oh, it makes $40 million a year. Okay.
I think that idea has carried over into just everyday people. When the pandemic hit and people got stimulus checks and free money and free handouts from the government, you look at the inflows of that money that went into the stock market, really mostly through this Robinhood trading app. The way that Robinhood was created, they hired a bunch of video game developers, and it's like playing a video game, except you're dealing with real money. And what did this create? It created this meme stock explosion of just throwing money that you got for free from someone, throwing it at a company like GameStop, which should have gone out of business years ago, and just playing around with money for fun. And yeah, look, the crypto bubble, and I don't think it's a bubble, but I think cryptocurrency has thrived because of this. But the general stock market as a whole, the S&P and the S&P reached all-time highs earlier this week, and it just continues to go up, and it's not an accurate reflection of the strength of the economy. But the point I'm making is people have this idea now that money is just an idea. Okay, I got $1,000, let's just put it into some stock. Or there are now tens of thousands of cryptos out there, and people are just blindly putting money into a random crypto that's the latest one is now Shiba Inu. It's a top 10 cryptocurrency, and no one even knows what the heck it is. The show came out on Netflix. It's the most watched show of all time on Netflix now. The Korean, I forgot what it was called, but it's a Korean show, Squid Games. And somebody just created a website, squidcoin.com, and said, invest in this cryptocurrency. And it inflated up. It went up like times 1,000 in a matter of 1 week. And then whoever created this coin took all the money, and then the site shut down, and it just disappeared. It was a complete hoax. And so that again goes towards the idea of money is just, it's become an idea. Money used to be about necessities. And I'm sorry, climate change is not a necessity. You wake up, why do you wake up every morning? You're probably going to work. Why are you going to work? Because you want money and you need healthcare. Or you wake up because you're taking your kids to school, education. Those are necessities. Very few people, very, very few, even Democrats, are waking up every morning saying, I'm getting out of bed today because climate change is encouraging me to live my life. No.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Saving America. This is Dr. David D. Schein. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite platform.